Khorne, the blood god, is the chaos god of anger, violence, and hate. He was the first to awake of the four gods of chaos, fully coming into existence during Terra's Middle Ages, an era of wars blooming in the wake of his birth. Every act of violence gives Khorne power, whether committed by his followers or by their enemies. His titles include the Lord of Rage, the Taker of Skulls, the Lord of Battle, and the Master of the Brazen Throne. Although Khorne despises the use of magic and accordingly hates Tzeentch, Slaanesh is the one he loathes most of all. Khorne and Slaanesh personify two entirely opposing aspects of chaos, and Khorne considers Slaanesh's self-indulgent sensualities insulting. Khorne is said to have inherited the instinctive values of martial honor, pride and bravery, some of Khorne's followers using these to justify their killings. But Khorne's most fanatical worshippers know that Khorne cares not from where the blood flows, but only that it does. All else is meaningless artifice. His associated number is 8, reflected in the organization of his armies, and in smaller matters, such as the number of syllables in a demonic follower's name. Images of Khorne show it to be a mighty being, sitting upon a great throne of brass atop a mountainous pile of bleached skulls centered in a lake of blood. The skulls are of all those slain by Khorne's champions, and of all his slain champions, ranging from human heads beyond counting to gigantic tyrannid skulls. The mountain slowly grows ever higher. Khorne himself is most commonly depicted as a gargantuan figure, broad and muscular, with a snarling hound-like countenance, brooding beneath his red and black armor of brass and iron. His every word is a growl of inexhaustible rage, and his roar is that of pure bloodlust. Khorne's domain is known as the Fortress of Khorne and includes his brass citadel. Khorne's followers are warriors without exception, if only in mind than in occupation. His followers build no temples, but rather worship him on the battlefield. To devote time to building temples rather than fighting for something would more likely incur Khorne's wrath than please him. Worship of Khorne is purely through bloodshed, either from one's enemies in victory or one's own through earnest struggle. It is said that any follower who allows a day to pass without contributing to this act of worship will incur Khorne's displeasure. The battle cry of the followers of Khorne reflects his desire for wanton violence and is feared by all who hear it. Blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. In the mythology of the primitive inhabitants of Fenris, he is an evil deity. Described as the offspring of the dark god Horus and the dragon goddess Skrynia, and is imprisoned within one of the planet's volcanic islands after being defeated by Rus. Why Khorne is connected to the number 8 is unknown, but it has been so since the warp first echoed to his fury. His affinity for the figure, and any of its multiples, is strongly reflected in the organization of his legions, from the number of Bloodthirster ranks to the number of cohorts in a full-strength legion. It is a number that also appears throughout the blood god's domain in the Immaterium, as 8 enormous towers ring the brass citadel, and a demon slain in real space must complete 8 tasks before Khorne will once again give them shape. In the most sprawling of battles within the warp, it is always Khorne's 8th wave that is the most powerful. Even his mortal worshippers recognize and revere the sacred number, using it in their blood-soaked summoning rituals and carving it upon their flesh in gruesome ceremonies. The seers of many races have foretold that only after 8 ages of war have passed will Khorne's bloodthirst finally be slaked by a last apocalyptic battle. The demonic legions of Khorne are collectively referred to as the Blood Legions. They are the largest and most martial of the demonic armies of the Immaterium. Though savage and unrestrained, they nonetheless have a strict hierarchy determined by martial prowess. Each of the Blood Legions is divided into 8 cohorts, each of which is led by a Khornate demonic herald or demon prince. The Blood Legions specialize in melee combat, though variants do exist. Red Tide Legions are made up of Bloodletters which overrun the foe in waves of attacks, while Hellfire Legions specialize in siege warfare and demon engines. Brazen Thunder Legions are the most mobile of Khorne's legions, made up of Blood Crushers, Blood Thrones, and Flesh Hound packs. Bloodthirsters are the greater demons of Khorne. Of all the demons of chaos, they bear the greatest resemblance to the archetypical demon, having a human body, cloven hooves, leathery bat-like wings, and horned dog heads. They wield a fiery whip and a massive two-headed battle axe simultaneously in battle. They are the strongest and most aggressive of all demons, their muscle-bound forms having been fashioned from pure rage. Bloodthirsters are only known as Bloodthirsters by scholars of the forbidden and esoteric, while other imperial forces facing these entities in the battlefield might have other names for them, an example being Skullrender. The mightiest Bloodthirster of Khorne is Angrath the Unbound, who in the last 10,000 years has only been summoned twice from the warp. Both successful summonings have resulted in great loss for the Imperium, as many worlds fell to his terrible wrath. They are horned humanoids with hunched, crested backs, their limbs wiry but notoriously strong. They care nothing for strategy or subtlety, as they are anger personified. Unless guided by a higher intellect, they will simply hurl themselves into battle, caring nothing for the risks involved. To be in the presence of a Bloodthirster is to experience new heights of religious ecstasy for a follower of Khorne, and to fight alongside them is enough to drive many warriors to a deranged euphoria that results in permanent insanity. Bloodletters almost exclusively wield blood-drinking blades called Hellblades. These blades present their one source of pleasure, allowing them to hack into mortal flesh. They are also known as the Naked Slayers, the Teeth of Death, and the Horned Ones. Other subtypes of Bloodletters include Bloodmasters. They are monstrous and ferocious, vaguely canine creatures notorious for their ability to track down their chosen prey by tracking the psychic spoor of their victims. They are also known as hunters of blood and have claws to rend their foes apart once they catch them. They exist for the sheer thrill of the chase and the inevitable kill. By some accounts, the flesh hounds were loosed against cowardly warriors who killed the weak and unworthy. Huge beasts made from living demonic metal, they roughly resemble gigantic rhinoceroses. These beasts, being amongst Khorne's most savage and belligerent demons, are kept in pens where they tend to fight for dominance amongst themselves. However, a particularly favored mortal or demonic champion will sometimes attempt to claim one as a mount. This is no easy task, and the smashed remnants of the unlucky ones are left smeared around the Juggernauts' pens, but a few are successful and subdue one, receiving the boon of being its master and riding it into battle. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and let me know what else you would like to see on this channel as we dive deeper and deeper into the lore of the dark future.